Thank you so much. Thanks, Secretary Granholm. What a pleasure to be invited to come celebrate this amazing moment here at the Department of Energy. It's really a privilege to be here. So when I heard this news, for me, the years fell away, and all of a sudden it was 1978. I was a summer student in the middle of my college years, 19-year-old kid, and I got the chance to go work at Lawrence Livermore National Laboratory. And I showed up. And so you got to picture this. I'm wearing my bell bottoms. I've got long black hair. And I show up, and I'm a 19-year-old kid, and they give me a laser to work on. And I said, this is cool. I like lasers. But what's this laser all about? And they said, we think that if you point enough lasers at a pellet of fuel, we want to see if we can get more energy released from fusion than the amount of energy that the lasers deliver into that pellet. And I said, well, that's cool. And I spent 3 months working on this fun laser. And, and after my adventure with the laser that summer in Livermore ended, I went off and did completely unrelated things. But I have always kept an eye out and watched to see what was happening at Livermore as they pursued this idea of ignition, of achieving this kind of controlled fusion reaction for decades. And I went off and didn't do anything more about fusion, but the people I worked with and their successors kept going. And they went through periods of triumph, and they went through tremendous struggles and setbacks. They never lost sight of this goal. And last week, lo and behold, indeed, they shot a bunch of lasers at a pellet of fuel, and more energy was released from that fusion ignition than the energy of the lasers going in. And I just think this is such a tremendous example of what perseverance really can achieve. And I had the great pleasure of meeting the team, whom you'll talk with when you hear the panel in a little while. And they have come from many different parts of the world. They've studied many different fields. Many of them were summer students at Livermore, but decades after I was. So it took not just one generation, but generations of people pursuing this goal. And it's a scientific milestone, scientific energy break-even to achieve this. But of course, as with all of these kinds of complex scientific undertakings, it's also an engineering marvel beyond belief. And this duality of advancing the research, building the complex engineering systems, both sides learning from each other, this is how we do really big, hard things. So this is just a beautiful example. So, I also have been reflecting on how long the journey can be from knowing to doing, because it's a century since we figured out that it was fusion that was going on in our sun and all the other stars. And in that century, it took so many different kinds of advances that ultimately came together to the point that we could replicate that fusion activity in this controllable way in a laboratory. And I think it's just a reminder that sometimes, even when we know something, it's a very long time before we can turn it into something that we can actually harness and start to be able to use. And as the Secretary described, I think it's that prospect now is one step closer in a really exciting way. Okay, so let me just finish by saying I think this is an amazing example of the power of America's research and development enterprise. This is what the Department of Energy works every day to support and to drive. It's what our Office of Science and Technology Policy at the White House focuses on every day, is how do we strengthen and advance this enterprise. And it is an enterprise that President Biden has championed in a way that no one really ever has before. He submitted a budget for supporting federal R&D that is the biggest ever that we've had in this country. And so I want to take a moment and congratulate the entire Department of Energy with Secretary Granholm's tremendous leadership, the National Nuclear Security Administration here that has championed this effort for so long, Lawrence Livermore National Laboratory, and especially and particularly all the scientists and engineers across many years who got us to this moment. President Biden loves to say that the one word that defines America is possibilities, and this is such a wonderful example of a possibility realized, a scientific milestone achieved, and a road ahead to the possibilities for clean energy and even deeper understanding of the scientific principles that are at play here. So thanks again, congratulations, and all the best.